one of the most frequent ways we see percentiles in the wild, if you will, is in relative frequency ogives, aka percentile graphs. Very common in doctor's offices, exam results, things like that. So this is an ogive of the ages at inauguration of all the US presidents as of 2020. You can see the inaugural ages are down here and the cumulative percentages are over here. So we want to look at particular presidents and figure out their percentiles and then interpret those values. Okay, so President Obama was 47 when inaugurated. So approximately what percentile was he in? Okay, so the ages are down here. So you're going to take, let me do him in blue here. So you're going to go to 47. So this is 45, this is 50. So that's 47 and a half. So 47 would be right about there. Right, so that's 47. Just the kind of eyeballing it. It's not perfect. And then it's ideal if you can kind of take a ruler and go straight up to hit the curve. So you don't want to get a bend in your line. So straight up and then straight over to figure out what percentile this is. So you kind of make a horizontal line. Oops, I'm a little tilted. From that point over. All right. Now, what percentile is this? Well, it's pretty obviously about the 10th, right? Because that's 0 and that's 20. So he was in the 10th percentile. So P10. Right? That was his percentile, right? 10th percentile. Okay, so what percentile was he in? Interpret the meaning of that value. So we take the percentile and we turn it into a percent. So we say 10% of presidents were at or below his score, right? 47 years old when inaugurated, right? So this is the script piece, right? So 10% of, and then you put the context. It was the US presidents were at or below 47 years old is his value. So you could say the other way to write this instead of writing 47 years old is you could write President Obama's age, right? If you didn't know the value, then you could say whatever that age was. Which means, by the way, he's a young president, right? Only 10% of presidents were younger than him. So he's a young president. Okay. What about Thomas Jefferson? Well, he's going to be an old president because he's in the 70th percentile for age. But let's figure out what that means. So let's look for President Thomas Jefferson. So let me grab a different colored pen here. All right, he was in the 70th percentile. So I'm going to take my ruler. 70. All right, so here's 60, here's 80. So 70 is kind of right there. And I've got a line. I actually have them marked on either side, so you can actually line your ruler up a little bit. And you can say, okay, 70th percentile, straight out, hit the curve, right? That's what you want. And then you're going to go straight up and down from there. You could actually go high or low. It doesn't really matter. I'm just used to going to the low side because, well, I'm a mathematician. That's how we make graphs. All right, so let's see. 55 is right here. 57 and a half is right here. So it looks like 58, 58 or 59, somewhere in there. So let's go with 58. We're just guessing here. So this is 70 over here, and that's about 58, right? Anywhere between 57, 58, 59. And actually, 57 is too small. 57 and a half is right here. So 58 or 59 would be acceptable. All right, so now let's figure out the percentile, or excuse me, the value. How old was he? So we think he was about 58 years old. Now we need to interpret the meaning. So we know his percentile was 70. So you say 70%, and then in this case of U.S. presidents, right? That part hasn't changed. Of U.S. presidents were, and then you could use the at or below, or you could use the less than or equal to, either way. So at or below, and then his value, 58 years old, right? Which is Thomas Jefferson's value. I call him TJ. Thomas Jefferson's value or age when inaugurated. Right. So he was old, although I wouldn't say he's that old, but for his time, he was very old, right? So when he was inaugurated. Okay, so you always take the percentile and make that into a percentage at the beginning, and then you have to have the at or below piece, or the less than or equal to, either way, right? And talk about the context. In this case, it was presidents and inauguration and how old they are.